Hey, do you want to see me do something cool? No? Well, I'm gonna do it anyways. Boom, baby. Made it to Francais. Knew that it would happen somehow. July, my favorite month, it came and went. I spent 4 days here in Paris right before I went to my art residency. And here's a quick trailer of me going to see the Arc de Triomphe, the Pantheon, the Olympic Blimp. I saw mansions of Louis the 13th and 14th. I was amazed by the amazing sunsets and delicious food, but there's just simply too much to cover. Make sure you sign up for my Patreon if you're not already subscribed. Subscribe to my YouTube. I'll be covering more, but you get early access if you're a patron. So go ahead, click the link in my bio, and you can find me posting exclusive content nice and early, so that'll be exciting. My first full day, I started a canvas and a painting. I didn't quite know what it was going to be yet, but I didn't pack a canvas, so I ran to the local art store and I found one there. Here's a group photo that we took at the end of our residency with all 28 artists. Throughout my experience, I might have thought that I was on a reality television show. Everyone had such unique personalities and styles and vibes. My studio was marked with an arrow coming up right about here. You can see the space that I stayed in on the 3rd floor for 3 weeks. The weather was perfect. My studio view had lush green cow pastures in the distance. I had 20-foot high ceilings. There was tons of art supplies available in both the village and in the basement of the actual chateau. Like I said, I left room for spontaneity in my creative process, but I ended up finishing 3 collages that were mixed media. The local celebrity of the residency was named Dusty. He was a cat. His nightly ritual was that he would hunt a field mouse and then parade it around by throwing it up and down and slaughtering it. That was interesting. My first night there, Dusty slept in my bed. He didn't move, and that required a very gentle approach to get him to at least acknowledge me, but he slept and was purring very peacefully throughout my first night. Me and Dusty were pretty close. I would say actually that we were very close. I also kept up my everyday project where I made a collage or a drawing, or at least invited people into my creative process every single day. You can follow that on Everyday Manning on that Instagram account. One of these collages that was the core of what I focused on was added to the Chateau's permanent collection, which is quite the resume builder. But the 3 major pieces that I did were titled, the blue one was titled To the Memory of the Artist Whose Names Were Lost, which was inspired by the statue in the Pantheon that you may have seen clips of just before. The second one was titled The Whisper, which was on a circular canvas there. You can see me working on it and laying it out there, doing the hardest part of it, which was based on the original Rolls-Royce emblem, which ended up turning into the Spirit of Ecstasy. However, I liked this work of art because it really felt like the zeitgeist of my time there at Chateau. It was like a symbol of peace and trust that all the artists shared between one another. And then the third work of art ended up becoming the red canvas that you see in a bunch of the backgrounds of these things here, which I ended up titling The Princess and the 3 Swans. And that was inspired by the swans that were in the lake at the chateau, but it was also inspired by a German fairy tale titled The 6 Swans about a sister who saves her brother. So this one ended up being very much dedicated to my sister. The room had blackout blinds that would open like an accordion, which was great for sleeping. My bed sheets were changed once a week. I had a private sink and a private toilet. My trash was removed every 3 days, and my toilet was cleaned every 3 days. There were tons of art supplies. Did I mention that already? I cannot stress how many art supplies that they had ready for us, and you could just order from Amazon within a day. It would get shipped there. I wanted to get to know the other artists, which I got to do plenty of times during breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which were fully given to us by amazing chefs. However, I provided an art challenge for my fellow residents so they could come by and sign this big piece of paper that I had in the corner of my room. That was cool. My first 7 days of the residency, I went swimming every single day in the crystal clear reservoir that was at the bottom of the property. There was a dock that you could lounge at, and there was a few fish in the lake, or the reservoir, but they were harmless. I participated in 2 life drawing classes. They were really intense, but very rewarding because you had to sit up for a long time. I went on hikes they provided. I went to Col de Surf, which was a local cliff that you could overlook. I sent out homemade postcards, which are still yet to be delivered, but that'll be a good surprise for my patrons and family. And I donated a flower that I cut out collage style to the people who did an interview of me while I stayed there. So it was very collaborative, and these artists that interviewed me were so talented. They did such a unique performance every once in a while for all of us. It was just, you have to see it. I'll talk more about it in another video. I commissioned a fellow artist that I met at the life drawing class to make a portrait of me for my bio pictures on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to Aaron. It was amazing. You might see Aaron there in the background. And my neighbor Kate Bang was by far just the hardest working painter I had ever met, that it inspired me to push my artistic limits and to create works of art faster than I ever have. At some point, I even ended up blowing up a strawberry ice cream sandwich floaty for a friend. Shout out to B. You know, there's plenty of time to work hard, but there's plenty of time to have fun. Did I mention the local art store was really, really tiny, quaint, and cute? It was in the village right beyond the gate, but it had these nice little pear trees right outside of it, and it was stocked with plenty of supplies. I had read a podcast that said I might need to worry about that before I got there, but they have upgraded it since then. Shout out to Stephanie Scott. Great podcast about the Chateau. I recommend you listen if you're thinking about applying, which I recommend any and all artists to do. There were quite a few nights that I painted well into the night, even though quiet hours are at 10 a.m. Honestly, everyone was really nice and respectful, so you could get away with going to 11 a.m. Just put your headphones on and don't move around too much because the floors were a little creaky, but it was remarkable how little you would hear the floors creaking from far away. It didn't really it's not like it echoed or anything. And I, during my time there, really wanted to start a project to design a label for the wine that is now being produced at the new vineyard that the Chateau has. So coming up soon, that is the art store right there, but coming up soon you'll see the label that I made for my wine thing. Now this is not an official label that is yet to be produced by the Chateau. I believe they still have 3 years until their wine is properly fermented or gone through the wine process to be drank or bought. However, I call dibs on making that first label to any other future residents. Like, I don't know if we need to make a competition to make it work or something, but you'll see my design for it up ahead. You know, all 3 collages were put in order to make the colors of the French flag. So I thought that was cool. And if I was going to title the name of my wine, not only would it be part of the permanent permanent artist collection, but I think I would call it C'est Souvenir, which means remember in French. Anyways, I have so much gratitude for Beulah and Ziggy. You'll see them there. They kind of run the whole thing. And if you haven't signed up to my Patreon yet, make sure you do that. Links in my bio. Keep on rocking in the free world. And as always, rip in peace, baby.